Thank you all for being here today. As we know, the world has changed quite a bit over the last couple of years, certainly with our work from home, hybrid models, dealing with COVID, dealing with the different types of human aspects, areas that we never really talked about in the security world. So today we're going to talk about the people, the process, and the technology humans at work. So when we talk about the people, the process, and the technology, every organization knows you need to have the best people, you need to have the best technology out there, but the process in between is the glue, and that's your key. That's the most important thing. You could have the best people, you could have the best technology, but if the process is not managed appropriately, neither of them are going to make a difference to you. So we're going to go through that. We're going to also talk about today how an organization can achieve proper cyber hygiene within the organization and what that means, the importance of digital transformation within the workplace on multiple levels, and we'll go into that a bit as well. And also, as I mentioned, dealing with the work from home and hybrid models. And everything we're talking about today really pertains to everybody in this room across multiple levels within the organization, from the board down to pretty much anyone in the organization. This is one of my favorite cartoons in cybersecurity, certainly as it's propelled cybersecurity to the top of the food chain within organizations. We see here that they're coming over to the children's table and saying, "You're now welcome at the adult table." In the past, in the boardroom, there was a cybersecurity person with some knowledge, whether it was somebody who was a little bit versed in cybersecurity, whether it was, and I'm not by any means talking down to CISOs, they're unbelievable, but some of them are more security focused but not cybersecurity experts. So within organizations, they are now putting a cybersecurity specialist expert, could be the CISO, could be somebody else who is cybersecurity focused, and they are now an important part of the board, not just the organization themselves, but the board, and that is a critical element that we will talk about. So cyber hygiene, and it's not, as my brother refers to, are you using soap today? Cyber hygiene is more of how are you dealing with cybersecurity within your organization? So I've broke it down into 4 different categories. There are more, but 4 of them are quite important. So the first one would be continuous training for all employees, everybody attached to the organization, from the boardroom all the way down to an intern. And that's critical because we're talking again about the human element and we talk about data. Who is touching the data? That's everybody. So training has to be important and dealt with throughout the organization. I'm going to talk about what type of training and how you do the training and how you make it appropriate for the organization. Global awareness, which is cyber global awareness within the organization, and we're going to talk about how to make it something that is personal, as I spoke about earlier in the panel, something that's personal to you because it's something you live with, and you don't really have to think about it, it's something that day to day it happens. Then we talk about updated security and patching on a regular basis, and we'll talk a little bit about how we deal with the digital transformation within the organization of not having the butting heads of a CISO, CFO, and COO saying, hey, slow it down, don't spend the money, all the certain things that I know everybody has to deal with within companies. And then implementing a zero trust model, what that means to an organization and how there's no one size fits all. How do you do it appropriately for your organization? So in the past, we had a compliance culture. That was something a little different. The CEO or the board said, do it this way. If you don't do it this way, you're fired. The security team would say, you know what? The problem exists between the keyboard and the person. So you human are causing the problems. And the non-security staff is not thinking about security on a regular basis. They're saying it's someone else's problem. Leave me alone. Don't tell me what to do. So that's how it was in the past. Today we have a security culture, which everybody has some sort of input, which is very important, and we'll talk about that as well. When you have a proper management team and they're able to have proper conversations within the organization with the different policy holders within their groups, they're able to create a better cyber culture, but also cyber policies that are meaningful and that are held through the organization. The security team, they don't just create it, they study the workflows and they brainstorm the solutions based on their employees, not just based on a flow chart. Again, no one size fits all. Who are your people working? What do they need to do? What access do they need to have? Who do they need to report to? And what will make the organization flow in a seamless way? And security is everybody's responsibility. It's the marketing, it's the HR, it's security. Everybody has to be part of it because everybody has said, or the saying has gone, the weakest link in the chain is the human. And I'm going to tell you how to make the human part of the solution, not your problem. So when we talk about training, think about it. Today is really, well, not today's particularly, but in general, there are 4 generations that are sitting side by side in the workforce today. You go with the boomers, the millennials, the Gen X, now the Gen Zers, and everybody, they take in information in a different way. They like to learn in a different way. And again, not labeling anyone in particular, but in general, the elder generation, or the generation that has been around a little bit longer, they're more interpersonal. They like talking to people. They like to have conversation and get it done and really get that flow going of the interpersonal connection. And there's other generations that might say, you know what, leave me alone, text me. Let's do gamification. All sorts of different ways that they like to bring in information into their own psyche, into their own selves. So it's important to have different ways of training available. Be careful with ageism. You don't want to say, you're old, you do it this way, you're young, you do it that way. That's not a good way to run an organization. But have it available. Let them choose what fits them. And because you do it that way, they don't feel like it's pushed down in a way that they just don't want to deal with it. So they'll go around it, circumvent it, break it. They're not interested. Make some sort of reward sequence. If they do the training and do it well, what's in it for them? Yeah, they have to go through it, but you want them to really pay attention. And when they're paying attention and it's a way they like to learn, think about the way you learn in school. Which way appealed to you most? Who was your favorite teacher in school and why? Did they really understand you? Did they really understand the way to teach you and to really feel your heart? How did it go that way? Similarly, in cybersecurity training. And you stage real-world scenarios. There's been companies and different trainings out there that have said, you know what, think about yourself on an island far away, you know, something that is real world that actually could happen, and you stage those for your employees in a way that they can learn. And once they learn it, you stage them in a way that if it does infiltrate the company, they know what to do because it feels familiar. And familiarity breeds success. So you want to think about it that way as well. And you have organizations also where it's kind of like, should I say something? Should I not say something to my boss? Do I want to bother them? Do I want to get into it with them? You want to have that team effort. You want to have the Q&A. You want to have the interpersonal and understand who your employees are, because you'll create a better cohesiveness within your organization, which will develop a proper cyber culture, but also will be meaningful to your employees, that they'll want to be dealing with it and they'll live it. So when we talk about diversity, you know, that's a big buzzword today. Everybody says they have diversity officers. Let's hire a woman. Let's hire a person of color. Let's hire a different race. But it goes beyond that. Diversity, I believe, a diversity of a workforce yields diversity of thought and mind, which in turns yields better security. I'll give you an example. Think about 2 different rooms. The first room, they're trying to solve some sort of problem or come up with a workflow or brainstorm something. In walks 10 men, you know, similar age, mid-40s, all belong to the same country club, all went to Harvard. They all have similar, their kids are going to similar places. You know, very similar lifestyles. They all play golf together. They come in, they're all talking about what they did that weekend. Very similar. Oh, I saw you there. It was great. They're talking about similarity. So when talking about similarity, think about if they're sitting down together. Bob says, hey, I think it should go that way. Hey, you're right. You know, something is similar, that's what you'll continue to talk about because you want to feel like you belong to a club. So that if you have a very similar group, that's all that will be addressed. Think about the second room, diverse culture. Diverse religions, diversity, men, women, other, having all sorts of people from different walks of life. They come into the room. They're not talking about similarities, they're talking about differences. Where are you from? Where'd you go to school? What have you done? What type of things do you do for fun? So they're talking about differences. So think about the workflow in terms of it comes out of their minds. They're coming from different perspectives of life, different backgrounds, different diversity. So you'll have differences that come up, which in turn will have thoughts and be provoked, and not just quick agreements, but more of, we're different, let's come together and find something that really touches upon each of us. Diversity is critical within every organization. So we talk about updating security and implementing on a regular basis. So one point of digital transformation, what we could talk about from the C-suite, for example. You have your CFO who says, listen, keep the budgets down. You have your COO who says, let's move things along. We got to make our time frames. We can't lag this project behind. Then you have your CISO who's saying, you know what, security is critical. We need to update in security and patching. But everyone in here knows what it takes to update the security and patch all the computers and all the devices that your company has. That's slowing down, that's dealing with cost, that's dealing with putting projects on hold. There's all sorts of things that are happening. But if everybody's incentivized in a different way, everyone's going to butt heads. It's not going to work. So think about that process where everybody's incentivized around security. You have your COO, your CFO, your CISO, everybody kind of incentivized saying security is critical, operations are critical. Yeah, we need more from the budget, but you got to pull from the CFO. But if you have people aligned with each other for the greater good of making sure you're secure, yet operations are critical, and you work together as a whole, you'll yield a better outcome, but also you'll get what you need, which is critical as well. So when we talk about the employees share the same level of responsibility, that's a similar way. It's not that everybody is saying you all hold the same role. Not at all. That's impossible. Each of these roles are massive enough with everybody they have reporters reporting into them, which is, a job that cannot be done on an island alone. But I'm saying when it comes down to the responsibility of the organization from both the security and operations methods, it should be incentivized that one thing shouldn't stand alone. It should kind of go across the organization. And again, when we talk about reporting back, get the reporting from your people who are on the ground, the people that are reporting to you. What are they seeing? What do they need fixed? What is it that will help them do a better job in order to make not just you look good, but for your organization to function better? And Zero Trust, this is a great little picture here. In the past, you could think about a castle. And if the drawbridge comes down, someone comes into the castle, they have free run of the castle. They go everywhere, get information, do whatever they want. So here's an example of Zero Trust. Zero Trust, someone comes into the castle, all the doors are locked. They have to knock on the door. Who are you? Why do you need the information? They have to be allowed in. They have to be the ones who are getting the information for a reason. And when you get the information for a reason, you have to figure out what the Zero Trust means for your organization. Again, Zero Trust is not one model fits all, but what do you need to think about when Zero Trust is implemented? HR is involved in that. There's marketing's involved in that. Everyone's involved in that. From an HR perspective, you have Sarah. Sarah is way up there, massive access. Her Zero Trust level is, let's say, a 9 out of a 10. All of a sudden, Sarah leaves the company. Is HR informed that moment to cut off the level of access? Because somebody who's following the company and sees Sarah's not there anymore, there's access, let's break in, get that access, and now they have full control. Whoever holds the data keys, they hold it all. So when we come to the hybrid, and we spoke about this earlier in the panel, the work from home model and the work from the office model, and now moving to a hybrid model, there's many different vectors we have to look at when it comes to security. You're looking at security of a person figure the work from home model when COVID was the most rampant. Somebody's sitting at home, they're in their home office, they secured it down the way their organization told them to, but then they have their kid who's sitting there on Zoom and they don't want to go on Zoom. So the parents or the caregiver says, you know what, I'll just take my laptop and sit there watching them to make sure they're going in on Zoom, but I'll get my work done as well. Except they're logging in from an unsecured model, they're logging in from a device they shouldn't, they're in an area where they can be heard, they're not in a secure environment, they're kind of bypassing some security. But people, we're up in arms. How do we do both? How do we manage our home lives? How do we take care of the elderly? How do we have roommates living in the same environment working for competing companies? So companies were scrambling to get it together, to get it secure, and how they deal with their employees, but also how do we make our customers feel that we're dealing with it in an appropriate manner, that their data is secure. Moving to a hybrid model, companies are saying, you know what, this is better, we're having people back in the office. Not everyone's coming back to the office. Now you have two environments to deal with. You have the home model, you have the people who are coming back to the office, and then you have the people who are straddling both. So the people who are straddling both, I would say, are probably your biggest security risk. Because BYOD, that's extended even further than it ever has. They're going home, their home environment, they're going back to work, a work environment, and people's psyche in general, when you're in a work environment, you're somewhat thinking security. But if you're kind of lacking in that all the time, and you're used to bouncing around, that's your daily life now. So think about their way that they're operating themselves, their organization, the people they're talking to, how they're doing their work, how they're managing their work. How is the organization supporting this? And it's not here, just do it and get it done. It's thinking about the human element. How are they securing it down? How is the process between the people, the technology, the glue within the company? What is being done? What is being managed? Are there some that are managing the working from home people, the hybrid people, and the people from the office? Think about how you want your organization to be looked at from the top down. Who is responsible? And there always has to be a responsible, either individual, a group, somebody who is looking at it and understanding the workflows and understanding where these people are moving around and how they're gaining access and how they're coming within the organizations. So challenges, there's a number of challenges set out here. There's just a few. I'm sure there's many more we can all think of. But again, one of the biggest problems that people had when they all of a sudden had to work from home was, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I'm doing my best. Juggling a bunch of things. Yes, COVID has changed a lot and people are we're out there, we're here at a conference that's in person. That's a new thing. It hasn't really been such a norm in the past little while. But be very clear what you expect from your employees, how, what is important, who is managing it, as we mentioned. And, people don't want to be micromanaged, but you still want to make sure there are no holes in your security. So you have to be careful with that. One of the other pieces I think that was earlier mentioned in one of the talks was telling your employees no. You can't do this, no. I think one of the CISOs said that's what they asked. Oh, can we do this? No. So if you keep telling your employees no, they're going to go around it. They're going to find a way to make it yes. So if you're explaining why certain criteria and why certain rule sets are set up within the organization, the reason why, and behind that, and have that interpersonal relationship, they're going to listen. No one wants to be told no without an explanation. Think about it in your everyday human life, and that's one of the things I tell companies. It's not just company-centric, it's human life-centric. Think about people, employees, they're people. It's not just, okay, I'm coming to work, doing my job, getting it done, but how do I want to be talked to as a human? How do I want to be related to? That's how your people, and that's how your employees are going to feel connected to the company, but also that they're going to have allegiance to you as well as the company, so they will give you their best. And that's what everybody wants. Insider threats is a big thing within cybersecurity, as we all know, and I'm going to give you a very interesting example that happened with one client that I was consulting with. So insider threats come in many different ways, and we're going to go to malicious insiders as well as the non-informed insiders. So I'll have a few slides that'll explain it in further detail, but I'd like to first explain it in this manner. So the non-informed, or let's call it the negligent, are people who don't realize, they just don't know because they weren't told, or they're afraid to ask, or they're uninformed. They're not sure of what their expectations, what the limits are. Should I push this? Should I not? I know the CISO's traveling. He sent me an email. I need to click on this. What do I do? It's the kind of things that you really have to tell people. But there's also the human factors piece of security. So an example was, there was this one company who said, and they had high-level security with multi-level clearance, even to get into the building to the highest level of security. So I staged a real-world scenario. One of the higher-ups within the organization was a woman, and she was expecting a baby. So I said to her, we're going to throw you a baby shower. So we're going to throw you a baby shower, and you're going to be sitting in the highest level of security. And what happened in this organization, you had to get through multiple levels to get to that area. So first thing we did was we had a gentleman, and we gave him a big sheet cake that said, "Congratulations, April," on it. In one hand, he was carrying a big bouquet of balloons. Another one was filled with presents. His hands were not moving anywhere. He'd drop everything. Comes up to security, and they said, "Badge, what's your name, rank?" And he said, "April's wedding shower. It's in my back pocket." They're like, "Oh, it's April." He said, "Yeah, I'll save you some cake. Okay, go in." And this happened multiple levels throughout the organization. Literally, you can't get in there without a thumbprint. You couldn't get in there without security or a badge. But this man was able to move within the organization seamlessly, walked over to April and put the cake down. Why? Think about human nature. Human nature is people want to belong. They want to be part of something. They want to feel part of a group. That's just the way we all are. We're wired that way. We don't want to sit on an island alone and feel like an outsider. We want to be part of something. So as he's walking in, he's letting people know that April, who's a high up in the organization, is having a surprise baby shower And we can't let her know because then we'll ruin the surprise. No one wants to be the person who ruins surprises. Everybody wants to be part of that party that April feels that they were part of. So this person was able to get there in a way without showing any identification at all. That's just an example of a human nature and a human type of interaction that happened. Another organization, we took the USB drives that had, the logo of the organization on and dumped a few in the parking lot. So what would people do? Plug it in their computer and see who it belongs to. You're opening yourself up for many different ways. So it's not just training on technology if it's sitting in front of you. It's training in human factors ways of people, how people interact, trust. What does that mean within an organization? What do you need to do to let your employees really understand what it means to be a secure company from the inside as well as the out? How are your customers feeling about the way that you have security? How are you explaining to them that the way that you're looking at it is not just from a single perspective, but you're looking at it from a magnitude of ways of security, technology, and that process? Human error. This is actually my favorite cartoon here. You can have all the best technology out there. You could have your firewalls, your encryption, your antivirus software, everything. And then you have one person. Oops, I didn't know. I'm sorry. It wasn't my fault. You didn't tell me. I clicked on it because I was used to it and I wanted to make sure that I got the information on time. Human error Dave could take down a company. And as we've all seen that the number one vector for cyber attacks have been phishing attacks. And it hasn't been really malicious people. Yes, there have been attacks that way, but some of the biggest ones have been a non-insider threat of a person who just didn't know, clicked on the wrong thing, forwarded the wrong thing. And one of the biggest problems we have today, or it could be a problem or not a problem depending on how you handle it, is how we multitask at lightning speed. Everybody's doing everything all at once. If you ask a person what they're doing today, it's, well, I got a text here, I got a cut and paste there, I have 15 browsers open at once. There's all sorts of things I'm doing right now because that's the way we are today. We multitask. You're giving someone dinner, you're on your phone, you're writing an email, everything's happening all at once. So it happens that human error occurs. It's only natural because we are people that move quickly. So the one thing I tell people, the number one way to solve a lot of these cyber problems is slow down and stop and think before you do something important. Because we're so wired to move quickly, wired to get it done, because we want to not just maybe impress our boss, maybe get the next business, maybe move quickly so we can get to where we need to be faster to get the next deal done. So if we're moving that way, think about all the levels of human error we could have by accident. Even the people who are looking to grow the business, it happens. Transferring the wrong wire, transferring it the wrong time, giving over a budget to the wrong person, giving access to the wrong person. So zero trust, locking down, having the areas that you need to have are critical. So when we talk about empowering your employees to be part of the solution and not the problem, again, it's having that information that you talk to your employees. And when you have a good manager, or you have a good department, it's not just looking at people as bodies within your organization and saying, you know what, we're going to have this group come. Get to know them. Because I promise you, they have their eyes and ears to what you want them to report to you. And if they trust you, they will report back to you, which will make you a better manager, better boss, better group leader, or wherever you sit within the organization to do a better job for your organization. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you very much. You're doing my job. So,
Sorry.
Is there any question in the room? Oh, somebody is standing up right there. If we could bring the mic.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. Indeed, dealing with humans is what I do because I'm a change management, but I'm also taking care of cybersecurity awareness in the mandates that I do. So I find it, my way of doing things is, of course, doing campaigns monthly to educate everyone. I tend to do a big brouhaha for Cybersecurity Month in October, but I also go towards vulnerable groups to speak to them. And so while finance, HR, and payroll are often those that I speak to, INT is also one that is unfortunately vulnerable, but that we need to speak to differently. And I find it sometimes difficult to find valuable, I guess, ways to train them and to bring their attention to some of the issues that they tend to create in the workforce. So I was wondering if you perhaps have a few ideas for me for that vulnerable group that is INT and that thinks that they know everything.
Sure. Well, thank you first for highlighting that each one is specific. And that was one piece I just also wanted to touch upon. So thank you for that. A lot of organizations, they have, let's call it training day, where one time a year, maybe 2 times a year, they'll shut down the company or they'll pull all their company into a big place where they'll give a lunch, they'll have games, they'll have all sorts of things, and there'll be training. And everybody will come all fired up, give them 2 weeks and ask them what they learned. They won't know a thing. And then you'll tell them in a scenario, okay, IT, HR, marketing, think about this scenario from your perspective. So exactly as you said, it has to be personal. It has to be something that's real life, because then it will be meaningful to them. So when you're talking IT, it's really what they deal with. What are they intersecting with? Who are they speaking to? And I'll give you an interesting story. When I was running one of my companies back in the financial days where I had some of the clients at some of the big banks, I had a bank that I went into and they were beside themselves because their lead engineer was implementing some sort of security and he wasn't quite sure on how to do it. So he went to Facebook. And he put on there saying, banks, everyone knew, it wasn't bank so-and-so, it's this guy was known to work for a bank. I'm implementing this, I'm kind of stuck, can anyone help me? So they're like, what are you doing? And he said, look at my friend circle, we're all engineers, we're all software engineers, I was just asking for help, I wasn't telling them who I work for. So it's becoming aware of the surroundings. What are you doing? How are you talking to the people? Who is your network? And how are you communicating on what platform? And what is okay for your organization? Think about the different platforms that we all communicate on. There's the WhatsApp, Telegram, Signal, Slack. There's all sorts of channels, all sorts of things. What is okay for your organization and why? What is okay for them to transfer information, even to each other? So a big thing with IT is the interpersonal with each other, right? In the silo itself, but with each other. Where's that information being shared? How is it being stored? Who has the eyes on it? So I would think some sort of training around that would be a critical for organization as well.
Any other questions? Well, thank you very much
Thank you.
for the session. And if I have to remember one thing, I think people, employees are part of the solution.
Correct.
And as a company, we have the responsibility to train them and to include them in the solution.
Correct. Thank you.
So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Really appreciate.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.